still feed on our transgressions. Corruption. Obsession. Deceit. Rage. You must face these demons.
Oh yes guys, the hype is real. Total War Warhammer 3 is on the way, probably coming at the end of this year. So we have a little bit of a wait just yet. But my god, am I excited, and I hope you guys are as well. So I thought it would be a fun time to do a top 5 wish list of different mechanics to the game and changes that I would like to see in Total War Warhammer 3, and I'm going to be going through them with you guys today. And if you've seen the front screen, I'm sure you can picture what my number 1 is going to be. And yes, it does involve the mighty faction of Cathay, who are going to be a base race in the upcoming game. Not too much is known about them lore-wise, as a brief description. But my number 1 wish on the wish list today is going to be involving the Dragon Emperor, also known as the Celestial Dragon Emperor, who does command the largest human faction in existence. And basically, the rumour behind him is he's actually a dragon in human form. And if anything is to go by rumours in Warhammer, they tend to be true, or at least relatively similar. So I do believe that the mighty Emperor himself is a dragon. Now, it doesn't say in the descriptions of the lore if the people know this, or if it's something, you know, they half believe, or if they do indeed know he is in fact a dragon. And the main thing I want to come in from this is a really cool in-game mechanic, relatively similar to how Malice Darkblade works, but if we use that as a basis and improve upon it, that's what I think the Emperor should be, because Malice Darkblade stuff is really fun, particularly in campaign. You have this whispering demon in your ear, and it does affect and give a unique feel to the campaign, but on the multiplayer map, it does make him a little bit of a damp noodle. Now, how would I like this implemented? Well, there is many different ways that Total War, or CA I should say, could bring this into the game. For example, if the people do not know he's a dragon, revealing it to them could change the way the entire campaign map works, open up a new era for the Cathay people, unlocking new units, building chains, and completely changing the way that they play. So it could be a risk and reward situation, one perhaps you cannot take back, so a decision that you can't make too light-heartedly. On the multiplayer screen, it's certainly going to be a challenge to make this work. A dragon is a very powerful force, so having a human transform into a dragon, of course, would be maybe a rather expensive ability, as it would be insanely powerful. But what do you guys think? Do you think there could be some really cool mechanics involving the mighty Emperor himself, the Dragon Emperor, combining him with, you know, turning into the gigantic beast itself? Is there any ways you think this could be implemented in a really cool way? So on to number 2, guys. So this one will not come as a surprise to you whatsoever, with the channel being based around the multiplayer scene, but I definitely want some huge changes to how multiplayer operates going forward into the next game. Total War Warhammer has a really cool community of multiplayer players, competitive scene with tournaments and so forth, but a lot of it is kind of run by the community, which does come with a few pros. We can organise our own rules and so forth, but there's a lot of problems as well. As you can see here, we are on the multiplayer screen where you can host a battle, which is nice and good fun, and equally at the moment you can open up and go to quick battles, where you'll be randomly assorted with a random player of varying degrees of skill. There is no matchmaking service at the moment which will match you up to people of relative strength. You could literally have your first game and pop in up against someone like Tlaxlan Soothsayer, get your butt absolutely kicked, and not really want to dip your toes back into the game in the future. Equally, there is a leaderboard system here, but it's not a particularly fantastic way of deciphering who is a good player and who's a bad player, as it only does really focus on the quick battle system. So there's quite a few ways that you could in fact change this. Challenge, for example, is a website most tournament players use to host events. You can easily implement that into the game, where you could set up tournaments, change the rules as well, and even could just quick battle into tournaments. And when it gets full up, for example, if you hop into an 8-man tournament, as soon as you load in, you'll be chucked into the tournament, and it just starts running away once that list is full. This has been done in games like Call of Duty, for example. with their kind of one-on-one system where you just get chucked into a really quick, rapid-fire tournament mode, and I think it was certainly something that could improve the game in a huge position. As you can see here, we can check out the top players, we can check out our own position as well to see where we are, and filter between ourselves and our friends, but that is about it. That's as far as this does indeed go, which is a little bit unfortunate. It certainly has the legs on it and the basis to get running and kind of move up into, not necessarily, you know, some of the hugest multiplayer games in the world, but as we saw from the trailer, Total War Warhammer is incredibly popular. It was I think #1 trending or #2 trending at one point, and I think they should run with the momentum where possible, expand the multiplayer, as that gives long longevity to the game, keeps it running way into the distance, whereas I think campaign can get a little bit stale for people after a while. So big changes to multiplayer, mainly revolving around a new challenge system, so people can host tournaments themselves simply on the game platform, as well as hopefully some quick battle, just instantly joining tournaments as well, could work relatively well. A new ranking system would be nice to boot, because the quick battle system will match you up against anyone. I think there should be, still have the quick battles in, but also a ranked mode where you're brought up against players with similar win rates and that kind of stats. Also bring some new statistics on how many battles you've won with different factions, what's your win-loss ratio as well, would certainly be a nice boon. And we have seen elements of this coming into the forefront on Total War Warhammer 2 with the changes to the damage dealt and damage value sign, but I think there's some early stages that could certainly develop more. So #2 there, big changes to multiplayer, which I think can expand outwards. #3 also kind of falls into that multiplayer bracket and also helps with longevity, like mentioned before, and that is I would love to see the continued support of both Game 1 and 2 factions. Now I understand that coming into Game 3, that is going to be the main focus of attention, but one of the things that gives Total War such flavour is the huge variety of factions. For example, on screen now we can see the Greenskins, who have had multiple DLCs, and I don't expect obviously a lot of the Total War Warhammer 1 and 2 factions to instantly be getting a ton of action as soon as Total War Warhammer 3 comes out. Don't expect that whatsoever, but I certainly want them to still be well balanced and future content to come as well. We've seen what can happen with factions like Beastmen, where they pretty much get left in the dirt, and unfortunately no one really plays them anymore, and it takes a little bit of the colour and flavour out of the multiplayer scene, as well as campaign. No one wants to play anything which is super outdated, so continuing to give support to them, mainly on the Total War Warhammer 3 map. I don't mind so much if they don't focus on the base first 2 games, kind of improving the map and changing elements like that, because I think dragging people into Total War Warhammer 3 is really what they want to do, but for the longevity, you need to support these guys with DLCs, free LCs, and just general upgrades and maintenance, trying to stop the game getting a little too stale. Now, of course, I understand they're trying to make money, and the best way to do that is going to be through Total War Warhammer 3 and the new factions which will come out. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we get a load of DLCs simply based around factions we've yet even heard of. Would certainly be some really good fun, but they certainly need to keep the flavour alive, and I think supporting the base factions is certainly the best way to do that. I don't think they need to do anything huge, but general balancing and 1 or 2 DLCs further down the line will certainly help them out in the long run. I think Total War Warhammer 3, being the last game, needs that to keep going as long as possible. So pretty brief on there. Continued support for Game 1 and 2 factions, particularly my Dino Boys, of course. There's still plenty of lore and new units to drag out and kind of put into the game as well. So up to #4. So up on #4, guys, what I'd really love to see, as I mentioned actually a little bit previously in the other statement, was I would like some relatively unknown factions, such as the Chaos Dwarfs and Hobgoblins, to really be fleshed out and brought to the forefront as main factions in the game. I certainly expect to see them in DLC format, and I think they've got plenty of research and are working with Games Workshop to bring out the best in these troops. If you guys have seen the Design in Cafe and Kislev video that Games Workshop did indeed put up on their main YouTube channel, you'll know that during the design of them, Total War worked very closely with, CA I should say, worked very closely with the guys at Games Workshop to make sure everything was as lore accurate as possible. Not only do I think this will really help improve the games, but also help Games Workshop themselves if they want to bring out these guys as models in the future, and it works as a big old snake there, doesn't it? Feeding upon itself over and over again, helping grow these factions and flesh out Warhammer as a whole, which I think can only really work well in the long run with the continued relationship between CA and Games Workshop. And I mean, how can you not love hobgoblins based off the Mongols here, a Genghis Khan style faction? Imagine that, a huge horde of gigantic wolves in a skirmish for greenskin based force, and of course chaos dwarfs. You can't get much more rock and roll than them. So fleshing out these factions in a similar way than they did to the vampire counts. We saw how the vampire coast, sorry. We saw how popular that was and how they managed to use their interesting textures and designs to influence their gameplay, having one of the best campaigns in all of Total War Warhammer 2. It also gave them a little bit of freedom to create brand new characters, which I'm certainly all for, and I think that should be something that does get brought to the fray in game number 3, but and I cannot stress this enough, I really want CA to stick to their close relationship with Games Workshop in designing these characters. They're the guys who have designed all the ones in the past, and make sure it's all lore friendly and fits correctly, because I think if you start seeing a few little splinters and kind of gaps in the lore, it really does kind of drag down the whole game. So basically, all I want is, these factions we've heard barely about in the distant rumblings of the old world before to be brought to the forefront, fleshed out with nice full rosters, and also have their own themes and designs. And if anything to go by the previous game, as I said before, Vampire Coast, we can certainly expect to see this come into the future, and fingers crossed it goes very well, because if this game goes well, I can certainly see them eventually maybe trying to do an Age of Sigmar Total War, which I'd be less excited for but still intrigued by, but maybe even a 40k variety as well. So up to my last number 5 on the wish list. So last up, guys, what I'd really love to see, and something I want them to continue with, because I think they mastered it towards the later stages of the life cycle of Total War Warhammer 2, is that we have story-driven campaigns. Now, by story-driven campaign, I do not mean the Vortex campaign, although that was a huge step up from Total War Warhammer 1, and really gave everyone a driving goal to achieve, and kind of a reason. Of course, you can still paint the map your colour if you wish, but having a story-driven end goal, I think, helps people complete the campaigns, get to the end of them, and it adds so much glorious storytelling flavour. But in my humble preference, what I would really love to happen is even the base factions to have their own objectives completely different from those of the opposition. Of course, you can tie them in a little bit to make sure they are intertwining and kind of related to each other in a certain format, but the Vortex campaign itself could get a little stale because every campaign was, in the end, trying to achieve the same objective. But once again, if we look at the Vampire Coast or some of the later DLCs, where you had real story-driven, lore-driven campaigns where you had to complete certain objectives in an order, and it made it just so much more thematic, grand in scale, and certainly for me, who's someone who does enjoy campaign but got a little bit tired towards the end. I never really finished any of the new DLC campaigns because I had relatively seen a lot of them before, but having these story-driven campaigns certainly adds to the excitement for me. And I mean, in general, people love a good story, right? And Games Workshop, Total War in general, Warhammer in general, has so many fantastic stories to pull from. It's one of their biggest strengths, as well as having such a diverse roster of different factions. I think it's something they 100% should be aiming for, is those story-driven, unique to each faction campaigns. This has been my top 5 list of little kind of wish list, I suppose, of dreams I have for Total War Warhammer 3. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know down below on the factions and different dreams that you have for number 3. If you did enjoy this, feel free to give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. And if you do want to pre-order Total War Warhammer 3, you can do it via a link down below, which also helps support the channel. Anyway guys, until next time, peace, and stay awesome.